Here.
Mr. Antonopoulos.
Here.
Mr. Rappiscato.
Here.
Mr. Grillo.
Here.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Ms. Keefe.
Here.
Ms. Alcieri.
Present.
Mr. Bono.
Here. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following means. Our annual notice was sent to the Herald News, the Record, the South Bergenite, the Observer, the Town Clerk, and posted in the lobby of the Town Hall and Board Office, setting forthcoming scheduled work meeting and public meeting of the board. Approval of minutes. I'd like to approve a motion to approve meetings 14, 1, and 2. So second. You need to separate 14 from 1 and 2. You have to separate that. You do 14 and that's what I just asked. Okay. All right, for 14.
So moved.
Roll call.
Ms. Malinick.
4.
Ms. Jarvis.
4.
Mr. Antonopoulos.
4.
Mr. Rappiscato.
Abstain.
Mr. Grillo.
4.
Mr. Donovan.
4.
Ms. Keefe. Ms. Alcieri. Mr. Bono.
4. Okay. Meetings 1 and 2.
So moved. Second.
Roll call. Right here.
Hey, Dennis.
Ms. Malinick.
4.
Ms. Jarvis.
4.
Mr. Antonopoulos.
4.
Mr. Rappiscato.
4.
Mr. Grillo.
4.
Mr. Donovan.
4.
Ms. Keefe. Ms. Alcieri.
4.
Mr. Bono.
4. Superintendent's report.
Good evening, and welcome to the February 2018 meeting of the Lyndhurst Board of Education. It is truly rewarding to see so many members of our community here tonight. Thank you for coming. For those of you who do not regularly attend our monthly meetings, you should know that in standard meetings, this is the time we reserve to celebrating the accomplishments of our faculty, our staff, our students, and our schools. And there's plenty to celebrate. Recent achievements include our students being selected to perform at the regional level of band and chorus, multiple high school seniors having earned the New Jersey Seal of Biliteracy, successful sold-out performances of the Lyndhurst High School Musical, and the 2017-18 educator recipients of the Governor's Educator of the Year Award. Given tonight's hefty agenda, I thought it best to remove the student staff recognition portion from this meeting so as not to have any accomplishments overshadowed. We invite you all back to the March meeting so you can join us in such celebration. After all, our students are what brings us together, and it is my sincere hope that tonight we are able to keep students at the center of our focus, our commentary, and our intention. For this evening's superintendent's report, I will focus on 4 main topics: the 2016-17 school year audit, a 2014-15 OFAC report, school safety and security, and my resignation. The first 2 topics will take us back in time. The third will bring us to current day, and the fourth will focus on the future. So let's start with topic number 1, a recap of our December 8th special meeting. And for this, we press rewind and replay. At the December 8th meeting, to a crowd of about 20 people, the board auditor and attorney thoroughly reviewed the 2016-17 audit findings. This highly comprehensive audit, which took place over a 2-month period, reported a district deficit of approximately $1.4 million. It was publicly explained at that meeting that these findings did not reflect one school year, but resulted from multiple years of overspending and practices that may have been less than ideal. It was also explained that any practices less than ideal could no longer be tolerated in our district. If we want our district to be ideal, then the true financial condition of the district must be revealed, addressed, and corrected. A plan was immediately set in motion to attempt to resolve the situation in its entirety by the close of this current school year. The newly crafted spending plan was designed to continue to foster the achievements of our students, enable the maintenance of all current contractual obligations, and support the fast-paced momentum of our district's growth. The fiscal findings of the 2016-17 school year audit were identified as not having any impact on our referendum account, and to this day, all plans remain in place for construction to begin this spring at Roosevelt and Columbus schools. We proceed to our second topic by pressing fast forward and moving from December 8th, 2017 to January 30th, 2018. Then we're going to hit rewind again all the way back to the 2014-15 school year. On January 30th, 2018, I received notification that the New Jersey Department of Education Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance, also known as OFAC, conducted a fiscal audit of federal funds dispersed by the Lyndhurst Board of Education for the period of July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. The subject of this OFAC audit preceded the tenure of the current administration. I was not a central office administrator in 2014-15. Mr. Scott Vysick was not the school business administrator in 2014-15. And the current board sitting before you was not the board in 2014-15. In the course of OFAC's audit, the district fully cooperated with OFAC's requests for documents and interviews. The board's counsel and auditor both reviewed OFAC's findings. As a result of the investigation, the board will be preparing and submitting a corrective action plan to OFAC. OFAC is also requiring the board to reimburse the Department of Education with $301,224. The board is working with the Department of Education, so the reimbursement has minimum impact on the district's taxpayers as well as the delivery of instruction and services. A copy of the audit and the board's corrective action plan will be posted on our website. The audit itself will be posted within 24 hours of this meeting, and the corrective action plan will be posted upon completion. The OFAC report may suggest that money was not accounted for properly in 2014-15, but it does not conclude or claim that any funds were not used for students or our programs. And now we propel forward. From reports dating back to 2014-15 to current day, and the horrific events making headlines in our newspapers, on our websites, and on our social media feeds. The topic of school safety and security, prompted by the tragic school shootings that have plagued our country. As fellow parents, as well as educators and school leaders, we share in the feelings of worry and outrage presented by the recent Florida high school incident and the numerous school shootings that precede it. Along with praying for the families affected, we must use these horrific situations as opportunities for enhancing our own preparedness and our procedures. Lyndhurst students and staff routinely practice the procedures that would be implemented in many situations, including a situation that may involve an active shooter on or around school premises. Administrators and staff are ready and prepared to make the decisions and take action when and if a dangerous situation arises, so they may respond accordingly to the given situation. We never reveal to the public any specific details about internal practices regarding safety and security. We would never want any information showing our internal procedures for securing student safety or showing how we would respond in a given situation to fall into the wrong hands. It is for this reason that parents and community members are not informed of the details of our preparation and practices. Our district and school leaders continue to stay vigilant in keeping student safety, health, and well-being as top priorities in the Lyndhurst Public Schools. This was predominantly demonstrated yesterday by our police department, who positioned themselves at our schools to assert their presence and remind students, staff, and parents of their vast commitment to keeping our school community safe. Our cooperation with local law enforcement agencies and our commitment to remaining current in our safety and security training and in our district-wide practices and procedures helps to ensure your children's safety in our schools. But please remember, too, that we depend on parents, students, and community members to report any concerning behaviors to the schools and/or local authorities so we can remain informed and aware of any matters that could potentially pose a threat to the safety of our community. This week, the Lyndhurst Police Department is conducting nighttime trainings here at LHS focused on school safety and security. You may have received a district-wide email blast about this last week. Following this training, the Lyndhurst Police Department will be conducting additional training with our principal and leadership team. As the police department continues to enhance its practices, such practices will be implemented in our schools. We recognize that nothing can take away the fear that accompanies the mere thought of having to manage situations like the recent school shootings that have taken place. However, it is our intention to help our staff and students feel as prepared as possible in any situation that may arise during the school day, and to assure our community that such preparedness is a main priority. Before addressing topic number 4, my resignation from the Lyndhurst Superintendency, I press pause. Pressing pause allows me to express my gratitude for the opportunity to serve as a contributor to the district at this level of leadership. Pressing pause also allows me to reflect on the work that has been accomplished by the district during my 20 months in this position thus far. A $19.8 million referendum was passed, which will renovate our schools, return to neighborhood districting, limit the number of schools through which students travel on their journey to graduation, and provide learning environments and amenities that foster effective instruction, learning, and achievement. A district improvement plan that was state mandated as a result of the district's performance in the 2014-15 school year resulted in revised curricula, enhanced instruction, and increased student performance, including but not limited to identifying Lyndhurst as an AP honor roll district. We have expanded our special education offerings, allowing more students to be educated here at home in our schools, as opposed to traveling far distances to out-of-district placements. 3 associations were working out of contract, one for more than a year at the start of my tenure. They all had their contracts negotiated and settled. Finally, changes within our business office, some precipitated by changes in law and some by changes in personnel, have resulted in clear reporting to the public and have also set the stage for the continuation of healthy business practices moving forward. We once again pressed play, and in doing so, we discovered that the foundation has been dug and the groundwork set. In many cases, the building has literally begun or is just about to begin, and this district remains bound for greatness. I urge the board to use this time of transition in leadership as an opportunity to clearly identify its goals for the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Join in unity to paint a picture of the district they want to see by determining their specific fiscal, educational, and facility goals. And be sure to include the community in its decision-making as often as possible. Not just the community members native to Lyndhurst, but those who have come to Lyndhurst. Those who, out of all the communities available, have sought to now make Lyndhurst their hometown, or to make Lyndhurst schools the place in which they choose to work. Once established, the perfect successor to the superintendency can be selected. And once in place, the board will need to commit to this leader that he or she will be trusted and supported while doing his or her work, and the board will focus on the work that falls under their collective responsibility. Freedom is the cornerstone of our rights as Americans. I will not use this space or my freedom to contest the comments made by many who have chosen to exercise their freedom to speculate on the reasoning behind my decision to resign at the close of this school year. Instead, I will exercise my freedom to limit my disclosure at this time. It is my sincere hope that those who have been witness to the 12+ years I have dedicated to this district will consider the contributions I have made, the commitments I have displayed, and the sacrifices I have surrendered, especially to my family, in support of our schools and our students. It is also my hope that these same people have witnessed that my leadership style is one founded on professionalism, fairness, and progressive movement in students' best interests. Any situation absent of even one of these elements leads me to do an injustice to myself, my certificate, and the community I have been hired to serve. A great deal of my time in central office has been spent rolling up a metaphorical rug, carrying it out to the trash, and sweeping up the residue. At this time, much of the debris uncovered and cleaned remains on me. And in this position of leadership, I accept that. At the close of the year, however, I look forward to brushing myself off and moving on in my professional journey, knowing I left this district even the smallest bit cleaner and brighter. This brings us to press stop on this month's superintendent's report. We will now proceed to the next portion of tonight's agenda, but I sincerely thank you for your time, your attention, and your interest in the Lyndhurst Public Schools.
Very nice speech, Dawn. I'm sorry to see you go. You were an asset to our school district. Okay, but I want some clarification on some of your time things and what you went over about the 1.1 million. Hopefully you can help me. Who is the superintendent, business administrator, 2014-15 year that this started from? Tracy Marinelli and David Pisa. Which board members right now sitting here was part of that board at 214-15 year? Susan, Grillo, Jarvis, Abiscato. So that's one. You were, no, you two? You two, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members. Not you, right, Willow? Not you? Not Erin? Not Chris? Okay. Just clarifying, because you said it wasn't this board, but, you know, not that senile. I know you were board members. I know what it was here. Now, the question is like 1.1 million that was paid for things that weren't budgeted. Like, how did they get into this mess that the ordered up? Were the things paid for contracts not bidded out and not approved by the board, or was it put in the budget? Was it staffing that was paid out that wasn't in the budget? Was it medical benefits that wasn't in the budget? Like, what is the whole thing that came up with this 1.1 million that became a deficit that they're supposed to make sure that they follow the budget? That's why you create a budget.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Dennis McKeever. I'm the board attorney, not the board's auditor.
Oh, by the way, who was the auditor?
Frank DeMaria, I believe. For 14-15, Frank DeMaria.
And that year he said there was nothing wrong.
I don't know the CAFR off the top of my head for that particular school year, but I assume it was clean.
Okay, give me the 1.1.
Well, I don't, in terms of the 1.1 and what in essence was happening, if I were to drill it down to a thumbnail, it's the items that were booked and budgeted for. It was a matter of timing in terms of when they were paid. So if they were paid out of a future year's budget, which was what was described, I believe, at the December meeting, items were paid out of a future year's budget. And what's happened is if you go through years and years of taking money out of a future year's budget, and you stop the merry-go-round, for example, and you can't continue to take from a future year's budget, it yields what could be a deficit. And the deficit was estimated to be about 1 million or 1.1 million or whatever number you.
But you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to float to one budget to the next budget.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that creates an issue. The clean accounting, the appropriate way, best practices would be your budget and your expenses match up to the cent. And that's, I wouldn't argue with you that is the objective. However, in any given year, there are things that occur. You might have an out-of-district placement. You might have to buy a boiler or a bus.
All those emergency things that come up.
And there are funds for those. And I'm with you. An out-of-district placement is probably a good one because you don't necessarily have a funding source for that. But those issues come. Now, is it best practices? I'm not going to say one way. I'm not an accountant. I'm not the auditor. What I can say is, in essence, what was described at the December meeting was a situation where the merry-go-round stopped, and we decided now we're going to make sure that at the end of every year, the reconciliation is exactly what's budgeted, is exactly what's expensive.
And who is accountable to hold your superintendent and business administrator that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing within the law?
Well, there's a number of different entities that would do that. In terms of a normal Board of Education, the auditor is your gatekeeper. However, your budget is submitted to the county office. Your CAFRA is submitted to the county office. So not only is there an auditor who is employed by the district to watch and make sure that the checks and balances are there, but there are other state agencies that also have to review the budget you prepare and then compare that to the CAFRA, which has to be submitted on an annual basis as well. So, to say there's one entity or one individual, I can't do that because there's a number of different entities that are watching what happens in municipal government like that.
Well, do you have an idea exactly what was paid, that shouldn't got paid, that didn't get paid? Has that been done through the state?
No, I can't do that kind of detail for you. I can't answer that. In terms of who was paid and who wasn't paid, I can't, I couldn't identify that for you because I just don't know the answer to that.
Well, there has to be some place where if you're paying something out of the budget, then somewhere there's gonna be deficit within the budget, and they keep transferring from one line item to another line item, which transfers are not supposed to happen until April. I don't care about the 10% because your line items are supposed to be exactly the way they are done. You're not supposed to go over, because by law, the superintendent has to make sure their never line is in the red. So how did they get away with not having any lines in the red?
That's a fair question. That in terms of how do you, well, it's a matter of when you would book a particular liability. It comes down to timing, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, timing, but we got up to 1.1, and I remember when I got on the board in 1994, it was 1.5 million fiasco. And like here we are once again in the news, that Lyndhurst can't do their accountability of watching their money, of 1.1 million and 400,000.
Scott can answer your question for you.
There you
Go ahead.
Concerning the 10% transfer rule, I'll pick up a lot of them. Concerning the 10% transfer rule that goes on, what you do transfers, if you go above 10%, you need county approval. That one's gonna go.
And how many line items on your school budget, and I know I was a board member, you inflate every line a certain percent, so you know in a special ed line you can take out so much, and that line you can take out so
I
much.
didn't design that budget, so I can't answer that.
Well, that's how they probably were paying something else and not paying exactly what was in the budget. Very bad accounting practices.
So I can't answer that question, I wasn't here, so.
All right, I understand, but did you come up with some of this and saw this as the new business administrator?
Have I made the corrections going forward?
No, the corrections going forward, but did you know that that was happening when you first came, or it was all brought to your light by the auditors who actually went through
No, as
the
I
budget?
started, I got the first inclination from the superintendent that something wasn't right. So as I came on board, the more I dug, the more I found out. It's like peeling back an onion, and the more you peel, the more you find. So I found out the bottom. And the bottom was $1.2 million deficit for funds that were expended that weren't budgeted for.
Very bad. Now, I understand that you haven't paid a lot of people yet. Now, when you have to make up this money for 1.1 million as a board, what are you going to do? Because I would not like to see it impact the children. So how are you going to make up this 1.1 million that you're in deficit without using surplus, or how are you going to do this?
So, Elaine, just to let you know, at the December meeting, we were very clear on what we were putting forward. We have already presented a plan to the county, and that plan, as stated in the public statement that went out at the December meeting, made sure that we were not taking away any programs or changing instruction from students. We were maintaining all our current contractual obligations to faculty and staff. So in other words, we were not doing any type of reductions in force at that time. And there were additional concessions that other people made that contributed to it. We also did a review of accounting. We were still in the process of that to make sure that all revenue was in fact accounted for and identified. So I can tell you that the county was very pleased with what we presented, and for that reason, we are still fully functioning and operating and keeping in touch with them, and they are monitoring our progress. And so far, so good. Kudos to Mr. Bisick for the amount of work that he's done, and kudos to him also for coming in here with a fresh set of eyes. Besides some limited corporate experience that I had, I couldn't fully make heads or tails of what I was seeing when things started coming into my office in the summer, when we knew we were going to have a changeover in the business office, but some things just didn't seem right. And I was able to at least point out to him what didn't seem right, and he was able to work with the auditor and then with the guidance of the attorney to be able to start making heads or tails. And a lot of the questions that you have, Elaine, are honestly the same questions we have. And this has been ongoing since literally July. And I have resorted to the fact that because it was so long ago and it was such repeated practices, chances are those specific questions are not going to be answered. All we can find were the general practices. And as Mr. McKeever indicated, it needed to stop. And owning in my first year as a superintendent, on my record, a deficit in this amount, that's not easy, especially when you know it didn't happen under your watch. But it's about the organization, it's about the district. And as a leader, you've got to eat it to make the district or the organization better. And that's what I wanted to do, that's what the board was in support of doing, and that's where we are now. And every day, we're lowering that a little bit more and a little bit more, and trying to pay off the outstanding bills that unfortunately did not get paid when we had to freeze everything.
And what is the extent of the state with Lyndhurst? Are they coming in? Are they monitoring? Like, would you have to report back to them? You have to show your action plans? What do you have to do?
We already showed the action plan, and they're just monitoring. Scott was there as recently as Friday at the county office. I can't predict what the county is going to do, right? The county is the county. They have skin in the game, and they have to do what they need to do. But I can tell you that daily, Scott is in communication with them, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what I can offer you right now is a so far, so good, you're doing fine. That's where we are right now.
Okay, because I remember in 1994, 2 people got indicted, was your superintendent and your business administrator, for misappropriating the funds when they received from the state and gave it over to town for tax relief.
So all I can tell you is, as I stated in my superintendent report, and you will see in the OFAC report, and I can't speak on anything regarding the deficit, but I can speak on the OFAC findings. And OFAC came in, and while the money, there may have been question as to the use of Title I funds, and I know I'm preaching to the choir if I'm going to talk to you about Title I funds, so I'm not even going to do it, but
Chapter 2.
yes, but I will tell you that in no way, shape, or form does any of the allegations on the OFAC report suggest that that money did not in fact go to children or go to programs.
Okay, now on your finance right here for this week, this one that you're going to be passing now, everything is budgeted that you're going to pass. There's nothing that's not out of the budget here.
No.
So this is something that you're going to keep an eye on to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But it's 4 eyes, maybe 20 eyes or whatever. Because you know what? It's so upsetting to live in this town and to have the district image of the school system that goes on to make us all look like the laughing stock. Because I remember when I was on the school board in 1994, and I went into this mess. I was board member like 2 months when they did all these indictments. And we went down to the convention, and it's very embarrassing to say, oh, you're from Lyndhurst, where's the 1.5? And they just would needle you because it just, you know, the publicity is things we don't want in this town. Things we want in this town is positive. We want our kids to flourish. We want it to be a good town. We don't want people leaving this town because of the school system. And this is something that this board has to really work on to try to get that image out that, you know, Lyndhurst school sucks and they want to know why people don't send their kids to the high school, that they want to move out of town. This is something where you got to really come up with this missing link to see what is going on, because it seems like more money is not the issue. It seems like something's wrong, and this new board member that's together, you've got to come up with solutions. And like here now, I look at the personnel committee, and it's my other thing. Anybody that you're approving tonight are related to anybody. I mean, that's another problem we have. We're not going to be the employment agency anymore for anybody, or promotions for anybody. This whole crap has to stop too, whether it's like it or not, it has to stop. But I have some other questions on this stuff. Okay, one other question that I wanted to follow up on. So before and after school program that you're doing with the town, how much has the town paid you so far for using the buildings and the drivers and whatever that they were going to pay for this before and after school program? Do you know?
We have a pending check for $25,000.
Did you get it yet? Did you get the check yet? Was it in the mail? Did they pay you 25,000? That's what they're paying you for the year?
That we get 25, that's what it is.
Is it for the whole year though? Have you received any portion of that check?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I'll come back when it should be done. Also, how much debt does the school board have that they pay the town, like 300-something thousand a year? You know about that too?
Debt service?
Yeah, what's your debt service and what we pay per year to the town?
We
Shared
got-
services.
Debt service is definitely.
Yeah, but it's still the town, the school board is half the amount of the pool.
Yeah, so I believe it's $350 a year, and we read, if you were here in August, I know I traveled back from a family vacation to attend that meeting, and that wasn't too crowded an auditorium on a midsummer August night. The shared service agreement was redone, and that was approved at that August meeting, and that outlines everything that we're getting for that money we're paying to the town. It includes 601 Riverside, it includes use of the pool, use of community school, of the fields, etc.
So there is like a certain amount that you still pay through shared services.
We do, but I think what was really important, and probably another accomplishment of the board, and something that I'm very proud of, is that prior to that, everything was quite vague. So there was a skeletal shared service agreement in place, but it was not specific. This shared service agreement went down to specificity, so that we had even what time fields needed to be cleaned by, and who was responsible for maintenance and custodial, etc. So we tried to cover every basis, and it's pretty comprehensive. So I think it clearly shows how we are getting quality for our dollar from the town.
Okay, so now I'm going to pick your brain with one more thing. When was it that the school board changed from voting in April to November, where we didn't vote on the budget anymore? Was that 2014-15?
Before this.
Before that?
When was the first one?
When was the first year?
Well,
2012.
the law changed, and
Well, see, that's the other thing, because if you go over a certain percent, you have to put it on the
Yeah, put it out
rubber
for-
ballot and all that stuff.
Yep.
But you didn't do that, but yet 1.1 million, maybe you can look closer then at the budget if you switch back to April. Thank you.
Lynn?
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle?
Good evening. So I have a few questions. First of all, Mr. Marco, I'm very sad and disheartened to see you go. I feel you were cream of the crop with your leadership skills and had a great vision for our district. So I'm very sorry. On a slightly different note, I want to speak about a little bit about the pre-K-4 program. I do want to thank you for offering that within the school district. I'm currently benefiting from it. My daughter is in it, and I think it's a fantastic program. And as a district with working parents, if it's at all possible, in their laundry list of items and accomplishments, if you could possibly expand that, I feel many of us in town could benefit from that as well. So the next part is, Mr. Marco, you pretty much addressed it with your opening statement, but I'm having a hard time, and I'm trying to grapple with this decision, and I respect your non-disclosure of what's occurring. But from my perspective as a taxpayer and as a mother of children in the district, I'm really grappling how a person, a professional who resides in town, who spearheaded the pitch and sold the town on passing the school referendum and had a vision 20 months into the contract just leaves. So it's a big loss to the district, and for the board members, it's just very difficult to understand what is happening with this transition. Within the last 5 years, we've had 2 different superintendents, okay, who left for different reasons. And now we have a big project at hand, and who exactly is going to be behind that big project? Who has next vision for our kids and our future? And that's something that I would like to ask. Essentially, how do you plan on filling this vacancy? Is it going to be with an interim, or are you hiring a firm for vetting purposes? So, because I really want someone with a vision, especially when there seems to be high stakes in the next couple of years with building this program. So,
Do you want me to handle that one? So, the board has already put in motion, putting together a committee in order to do a superintendent search. Obviously, given the timing of this, securing a successor is going to be difficult, just in light of, getting out and doing the work. The committee is committed to having community involvement, and I think later on in tonight's agenda, you will learn that there will be 2 things that are going to happen quite rapidly. There will be an online survey that will be emailed out to all of the community to give feedback and what they'd like to see in a superintendent.
That's Wednesday.
Tomorrow the survey is going out. And then a week from tomorrow, if I have my date correct, March 7th, there will be a community meeting, open forum with the committee, and community members will be welcome to come and to share their thoughts and concerns and what their interests are and what they'd like to see in a successor. So this is happening quite quickly. Tomorrow the survey will be available. And 1 week from tomorrow, March 7th, if my date book is correct, March 7th, there will be a community meeting. It will not be it's going to be where? Multimedia Center here. At 7:30, thank you everybody. 7:30, Multimedia Center here. It will not be a board meeting. We're not going to be public. There will not be a quorum of board members. The committee that's going to be responsible for doing the search will be there to meet and listen to the community with respect to their opinions on this. I will help to administer the meeting and keep it so that we get feedback that we can utilize in preparing the advertisement. Because one of the critical pieces is putting out an advertisement for a permanent that reflects the interests of the community and of the Board of Education. You asked the question as to whether the Board of Education would be looking at a permanent or an interim. The Board of Education is committed to having a permanent. However, the Board of Education is also understanding that when you're going to put an ad out in the not so distant future applicants typically in the state of New Jersey, if they're working in public education, they do have their own 60-day clauses with their current employers. So we're keeping all of our options open with respect to who the successor will be. However, the committee has indicated their dedication to having a permanent fill the position as soon as possible.
okay, thank you.
Oh, is it?
New business has the outline of all that you talked about. So if you want to look in the agenda,
I will.
new business.
Okay, great,
All
thank you.
the dates and the times of this committee is there.
Sure.
Okay, so then I will look forward to that community meeting, and I really hope that you do try and include all stakeholders, such as parents and students and staff, during your selection process. Okay, and for the record, I would like to be part of that if you'll have me. But I'll leave that for later.
You're welcome to attend. I think I speak for the committee when I say you're all welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Frank?
Hi, Mr. Marco, very sorry to see you go. Thank you for everything you've done for the district.
Frank, just pull the microphone out.
Elaine had answered most of my questions. I just had one follow-up regarding